Have you ever woken up, looked in the mirror, and thought, when did this all happen? The wrinkles, the stiffness, the slower mornings, they seem to sneak up on you, don't they? One day you're chasing the kids around the yard or lifting groceries like they're feathers, and the next, you're wondering why getting up from a chair suddenly feels like a small workout. But let me ask you something else. Have you ever stopped to wonder why no one ever really talks about what aging feels like? Not just the stuff about needing reading glasses or forgetting where you put your keys, but the deeper stuff. The way aging changes how you see yourself. The way people treat you differently. The surprising things you gain and the unexpected things you let go of. That's what we're diving into today. Not the surface-level stuff that magazines toss around, but the real, honest truth about aging. The parts nobody really tells you, but should. Because the truth? Aging isn't just about what's slipping away. It's also about what's waking up. It matters now more than ever to talk about this. Because the older we get, the more the world tries to shrink us. Labels like senior or elderly can make you feel like you've crossed some invisible line, like you're supposed to step aside, slow down, and stop dreaming. But here's the truth. Growing older isn't the end of your story. It's a whole new chapter, and no one ever told you just how powerful that chapter can be. In this video, we're peeling back the curtain. We're talking about what aging really feels like, what no one ever warned you about, what surprises people the most, and most importantly, how you can age not just gracefully but boldly. And it all starts with a simple truth that catches almost everyone off guard. You don't feel old inside. Isn't that strange? You look at old photos and see how much has changed on the outside, but on the inside, you still feel like you. Maybe a little wiser, maybe a little calmer, but still you. That's something no one tells you when you're younger. That even when your body changes, your spirit, the part that laughs at the same jokes, gets butterflies when you see someone you love, or still feels a bit rebellious from time to time, that part doesn't age the same way. It can be a weird disconnect, can it? You walk into a room and you know who you are, but people see your gray hair and assume they already know the story. They speak louder, slower. They ask if you need help with things you've been doing for decades. It's like suddenly you've become invisible or fragile in their eyes. And that can sting, especially when you're still full of fire inside. But here's the secret. That disconnect? It's actually your superpower. Because it reminds you that you're more than your age. It nudges you to keep living from the inside out, not the outside in. It challenges you to keep showing up with all the heart, humor, and strength that's gotten you this far. Now, let's talk about something else that no one tells you. How grief sneaks in through unexpected doors as you age. And I'm not just talking about losing people, although that's a big one. I'm talking about grieving old versions of yourself. The parts of you that used to run marathons, dance all night, or stay up late with friends. The roles you once had, maybe as a parent, a worker, a caregiver, that don't define your day anymore. No one tells you that you'll grieve those losses too. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're stuck in the past. It means you're human. It means you've lived. And the more years you gather, the more goodbyes you collect. Goodbyes to people, to places, to old routines. But here's the part people don't say enough. Every goodbye leaves room for a new hello. And that space? That space can be full of possibilities. Because with loss often comes freedom. Freedom to finally choose what you want to do. To speak your mind without worrying so much about what others think. To discover hobbies, friendships, and passions that never got a chance before. You'd be surprised how many people find their true self after 60, even 70. Because for the first time in a long time, they're not trying to prove anything. They're just being themselves. And that's beautiful. Let me tell you something else no one talks about. Your relationship with time changes. You start noticing the way sunlight looks in the late afternoon. You slow down to appreciate a warm cup of coffee in a way you never used to. You find joy in small, quiet moments. Some people see this as slowing down. But you know what it really is? Waking up. Waking up to life's details. The things younger folks rush past. A good book. The sound of birds in the morning. A conversation that lingers a little longer. These aren't just filler moments. They're the moments that matter. The ones you carry with you. And that awareness? That's something only age can give you. Another thing people rarely tell you is that you'll need to unlearn a lot of what you thought about aging. Maybe you grew up thinking getting older meant decline. That after a certain point, your best days were behind you. That's the story a lot of people are sold. But here's what's more true than ever: aging is not about decline. It's about evolution. You are evolving. Your body might slow down, sure, but your spirit? It deepens. Your insights sharpen. Your humor gets richer. Your tolerance for nonsense gets way lower, and that's a blessing in itself. You're learning how to live with more intention, more clarity, more honesty. Think about the kind of confidence that comes with age. Not the loud, showy kind. The quiet, rooted kind. The kind that lets you say, "I know who I am." That lets you walk away from drama, invest your time in what truly matters, and stand up for yourself without needing anyone's approval. That kind of confidence is rare, and it's one of the greatest gifts of aging. You see, nobody tells you that your later years can be your real golden years. Not because everything is easy, but because you finally get to live life on your own terms. You've earned your opinions. You've earned your wisdom. And you've earned the right to take up space, to be seen, and to keep dreaming. That might mean picking up a new hobby or learning something totally new. It might mean falling in love again or reconnecting with an old friend. It might even mean letting go of something that's been weighing you down for years. There's no one way to do it. That's the beauty of it, you get to choose. Now, let's shift a little and talk about something practical. Your body. Yes, aging changes it. But no one tells you how deeply connected your body is to your mind. The way you think about your body affects the way it ages. If you see your body as broken or failing, it starts to feel that way. But if you see it as strong, adaptable, worthy of care, it responds. You don't have to pretend it hasn't changed. But you can still honor it. Feed it well. Move it gently. Rest it deeply. Speak kindly to it. It's not about chasing youth. It's about embracing vitality. And here's something people don't always say. You can feel better at 70 than you did at 50, if you choose to care for yourself in a way that matches who you are now. Not who you used to be. Not who someone else thinks you should be. But you, today. Your health journey doesn't have to be about restriction or punishment. It can be about curiosity and compassion. It's okay to want to feel good in your own skin. You deserve that. Not because you're trying to hold back time, but because you're still living. And you're meant to live well. Now that we've touched on the emotional, mental, and physical shifts that come with aging, let's keep going. There's more to this story. Deeper truths, richer insights, and powerful choices you can still make. So, where were we? Ah yes, right in the middle of that beautiful realization that aging isn't just about what you lose, but about what you finally have the freedom to gain. And that brings us to something really powerful that often gets overlooked. No one really tells you how much emotional strength you build as you age. Not the kind that comes from powering through hard days or holding back tears, but the quieter kind. The kind that lets you sit with your feelings without being overwhelmed. The kind that allows you to be gentle with yourself. When you're younger, everything feels like a crisis. But now, you've been through enough to know that most storms pass. That a bad day doesn't mean a bad life. That even heartache softens with time. And that calm, that steady heart, that comes from years of showing up for your life. From facing the unexpected and learning to breathe through it. From knowing that, yes, sometimes people will disappoint you and sometimes your plans will fall apart, but you're still here, still standing, still learning. There's a kind of wisdom you develop that doesn't need to shout. It doesn't try to prove itself. It just is. It shows up in how you listen more than you speak. In how you see through nonsense quicker. In how you know the difference between what's urgent and what's important. That wisdom is a quiet superpower, and it makes you a lighthouse for others, even when you don't realize it. You also start to become more selective with your energy. And that's not selfish, it's wise. You stop saying yes to things that drain you just to keep the peace. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't really listening. You stop chasing people, achievements, or approval because finally you understand your peace is precious. You learn how to be alone without being lonely. How to enjoy your own company, even if it's just sipping tea by the window with your favorite music playing softly in the background. That's something younger folks often struggle with, quiet. But you? You've come to appreciate the stillness, to treasure the space where you can hear your own thoughts clearly. And in that stillness, something else grows, gratitude. Not the flashy kind that gets printed on coffee mugs, but the kind that wells up unexpectedly when you catch a grandchild's laugh, or see a flower blooming in a crack on the sidewalk, or when your joints don't ache quite as much that morning. That gratitude becomes a habit, a lens you look through. And life feels richer because of it. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally noticing what's been there all along. Let's talk about another surprising truth. Your relationship with forgiveness changes too. Not just forgiving others, though that matters. I'm talking about forgiving yourself. All those years you were too hard on yourself. The mistakes you replayed again and again. The things you wish you'd done differently. There comes a point when you realize carrying that around is too heavy. That it's okay to let it go. That healing isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about giving yourself permission to move forward anyway. You begin to understand that everyone's just doing the best they can with what they've got, including you. And that kind of self-compassion? That changes everything. Because it opens the door to joy. Real joy. The kind that isn't tied to achievements or milestones, but to moments. A warm bath. A kind word. A belly laugh. A beautiful sunset. The joy of being, not just doing. And that brings us to something we rarely talk about, but should. Loneliness. It's real. It sneaks in quietly. Maybe your circle has gotten smaller. Maybe friends have moved or passed on. Maybe the phone doesn't ring as much. And that ache, that sense of isolation, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It just means you're human. But here's what they don't always tell you. It's never too late to build new connections. Never too late to reach out. To join a club, a group, a class, even if it feels awkward at first. So many others are feeling the same way, just waiting for someone to say, "Hi, how are you?" You might be that someone. And they might be that someone for you. And yes, making new friends later in life takes a different kind of courage. But it's worth it. Because those connections, however small, feed your soul. Even a 10-minute chat at the grocery store can lift your spirits more than you'd expect. You weren't meant to go through life alone. You're not too old to love, to laugh, to belong. You're not invisible. And your presence still matters more than you know. Now let's talk about purpose. That's another thing people assume disappears after retirement, or once the kids are grown, or when work slows down. But that's just not true. Purpose doesn't retire. It evolves. Maybe your purpose now is sharing your story so others can learn. Maybe it's mentoring, volunteering, taking care of a neighbor, creating art, tending a garden. Or maybe your purpose is simply to enjoy the life you've built, and that's enough. Purpose isn't about being busy. It's about feeling like you matter. Like your time means something. And it does. Even if you move a little slower. Even if you rest more. You still have so much to offer, to give, to feel, to explore. It might surprise you how much people still look to you. How much your words, your example, your presence can mean. Just showing up, being yourself, sharing a little kindness, that's purpose in action. Don't let the world convince you that you've aged out of meaning. You're in one of the most meaningful chapters yet. Something else worth touching on. People often assume that aging means you stop growing. But nothing could be further from the truth. You're still growing every single day. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, even physically in new ways. You might not be climbing mountains, but you're still climbing. Climbing out of old habits. Climbing into new insights. Climbing toward a version of yourself that feels freer, lighter, more alive. You may discover new passions, new perspectives, even new parts of yourself that surprise you. You might learn to say no with more confidence or yes to things you used to fear. That growth? It doesn't stop at 60, or 70, or even 90. As long as there's breath in your lungs and curiosity in your heart, you're still growing. And that's a beautiful thing. Because growth keeps life interesting. It keeps your spirit engaged. It reminds you that you're still in the game, not on the sidelines. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, but what if I've wasted too much time? Stop. That thought? That's one of the biggest lies aging tries to sell you. It's never too late. Not for healing. Not for joy. Not for change. You haven't missed your chance. You're not behind. You're right on time. Whether you want to learn a new skill, travel somewhere you've always dreamed of, repair a relationship, or just start taking better care of yourself, start now. Not because time is running out, but because time is precious. And your time? It still belongs to you. You're not too old to feel excited, to feel hopeful, to feel proud. You are still a work of art in progress. And maybe the biggest truth of all? You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to fix aging. You just need to embrace it. To keep showing up as you, fully, honestly, unapologetically. That's where the magic is. In knowing you're enough just as you are. Let's keep this conversation going. If you've made it here with me, then I want to pause for a moment and say thank you. Truly. It takes a certain kind of openness and courage to explore these deeper parts of life, especially the ones people don't always talk about. But here we are, having an honest, heart-to-heart conversation about aging, not as something to fear, but as something to understand and maybe even appreciate a little more. We've talked about how emotional strength grows over the years, how purpose shifts but never disappears, and how growth never stops, no matter how many candles were on your last birthday cake. Now let's talk about something many folks wrestle with quietly: identity. See, for decades, your identity may have been tied to being a worker, a parent, a provider, a caretaker. You wore a dozen hats, and often you wore them all at once. Then one day, some of those roles fall away. Maybe you're retired. Maybe the kids are grown. Maybe your days look very different than they used to. And in that space, it's easy to wonder, well, who am I now? But here's the truth: you are more than any role you've ever played. And just because life has shifted doesn't mean you've lost yourself. In fact, this may be the first time in decades that you have the chance to really meet yourself, not as the world needed you to be, but as you truly are. Now is the perfect time to rediscover things that light you up. Maybe it's painting, writing, dancing in your living room, learning a new language, volunteering, digging into old hobbies you once set aside for later. Well, guess what? Later is now. This is the chapter where you get to write from the heart. And yes, sometimes there's grief that comes with aging. Grief for the people we've lost. For the years that felt too short. For the body that doesn't move quite the way it used to. That grief is real and it deserves space. But what they don't tell you is that joy and grief can live side by side. That it's okay to feel both. That your heart can carry 1,000 memories and still make room for new ones. It's okay to miss what was and still love what is. To honor the past while leaning into the present. Because this moment right here, it matters too. You still have mornings to wake up to, laughs to share, stories to tell, people to hug. You are still living, and that, in itself, is a gift. And speaking of gifts, let's talk about legacy. Now, I don't mean money or possessions, though those can be meaningful too. I'm talking about the kind of legacy that lasts long after we're gone. The kind that's woven into the way you make people feel. The kind that's passed down in values, in kindness, in wisdom shared at the kitchen table. Your legacy could be the calm presence you bring to a room. The lessons you taught your children and grandchildren. The way you always made time to listen. The handwritten notes someone still keeps in their drawer. The garden you planted. The neighbors you helped. The dignity with which you moved through your own struggles. These are the things that stay. These are the things that matter. You don't have to be famous or extraordinary to leave something beautiful behind. You just have to be real. And goodness, there's so much beauty in the realness of aging. In the laugh lines that trace decades of smiles. In the silver hair that shines like a crown. In the way you walk into a room with quiet confidence, knowing who you are and what you've overcome. They don't tell you that growing older can bring more peace than chaos. More depth than drama. That with every year, you learn to let go of things that once seemed so important, like being liked by everyone, or looking a certain way, or following every rule that never quite fit your spirit. You stop needing to prove yourself, and instead you begin to enjoy yourself. You find delight in little things, a perfectly ripe peach, a song you haven't heard in years, a warm breeze through the window, a shared smile with a stranger. Aging has a way of making the simple things feel extraordinary, because you've lived enough to know how quickly they can pass. And because of that, you treasure them more. And maybe the biggest truth that no one tells you is this: aging isn't something to survive. It's something to experience. Fully, gently, bravely, and yes, sometimes painfully. But always with the knowledge that every day you wake up is another chance to be here, to be present, to be you, in all your imperfect, beautiful glory. So if no one's told you lately, let me be the one to say it. You are still becoming. You are still valuable. You are still wise. You are still needed. You are still allowed to dream. You are still allowed to fall in love with people, with passions, with life. You are still here. And that is enough. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one truth about aging that surprised you? Or one piece of advice you wish you could go back and tell your younger self? Share it in the comments. I read every single one. And who knows? What you share might be exactly what someone else needed to hear today. If this video spoke to you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps more people find content like this. And if you want more uplifting, real talk about aging, wellness, and living your best life, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got so much more to explore together. And finally, here's to you. To your strength. To your softness. To your story. To the life you've lived and the life that's still unfolding. Because no matter your age, you're still writing your story. And it's a beautiful one. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.